Alright everyone, welcome back. Now in this lecture we are going to cover display all the categories and update our categories. So let's quickly get started with that. The first of all we need to display the category image if there is any. Then we need to display the category title. What else do we have in categories? We have the category status as well. So we also need to display the status of category. Then we also need to display the parent category if there is any. And lastly, we need to display the date added and finally actions for our categories. Now what we need is basically we already have declared this function, so let's utilize this one. And instead of converting it to array, let this as it is. And let's also remove the collect function from here. And finally, we need to pass the categories to our categories page. Now let's also run the for each loop. So at the rate if, and we have categories. So let's use the categories and check if categories count is greater than 0, then we need to run the for each loop on categories. Let's also utilize the tr, td. And the first thing is basically I am going to iterate over the loop. So this will display the 1, 2, 3, 4 or how many number of basically the rows are there. Then for the image, I will keep it as blank. For the parent, I will also leave it as blank. For the title, we have the title here. Then we also need to display the status. So status is basically like I want to display a status in the form of badge. So what I will do is basically I will use the span class and I will use badge, and badge would be like it could be, sorry, it should be like bg whatever depending upon the status. So let's use if status, or basically we have an active column. So if active is equals to 1, so we are going to use the success, else we are going to use the danger. And let's also wrap this within span tags dger. And similarly we are also going to display the status here. So if it is 1, then it is active, sorry, it is active here, else it is inactive. Then we also have the date. So if you remember, we created the date format in our general helper or general service. So we are going to use format date time and category created underscore at, like so. And lastly, let me split this into two rows. Lastly, we need to display the action buttons. So we will have three buttons. The first will be, let's also create a div here, and then anchor tag for a href. And right now let's use the hash here, and this will contain class of ptn btn warning, and this will display the title. So what it will do is basically this will check if it is active, so we will display the title of inactive. Okay, and then finally if it is not active we will say activate. All right, so this is what we are going to do. And we also need to check on click, return, confirm. Are you sure? So this will basically give us the information of if the user wants to perform this action or not. The second one will be the edit button. So for the this button we are going to use the dark one. For the edit we are going to use warning, and we actually do not need this one. And we also need to display the route here. So the route will be categories dot update. Sorry, it should be edit, and this will contain the category because this accepts the route parameter, and this will contain the category ID. And lastly, we also need to display the button here of edit. And finally, we need to create a form of method post, and the action would be route categories dot destroy. And this will also again accept the category as a parameter, and this will also have CSRF token and a method of delete, and finally a button to submit. So the type would be submit, and the class would be btn danger, and this will say delete. And again this will also have the click button as well. All right, so once all this is done, let's try to see if everything is working. So here we can see that things are working, except we need to basically fix these. Additionally, we also need to fix these options as well, because this is just a single. We are not basically making the, so since this will be the integer and we are comparing it with the string, so we will make sure that this works fine. So let me see what's the status of all our categories is. Actually, I see we do not have any status here. Yes, we actually do not have any status, so let's remove the status column. But I think we also need to have that status here. All right, so what we can do is basically let's create a PHP artisan, make a migration, add column to categories table. So in this migration we are going to create a categories column, sorry, this active column. So table integer active default would be 1, and this should be after description. And we also need to drop it as well, drop column active. And let's run PHP artisan migrate. Now this is migrated. If we refresh, we now have an active and everything is 1. So now we have also a 1 here. All right, so let's move back here. So we also need to make sure that the button is small. So we now have these buttons ready. The other two things, the image and the parent, we need to display. So for that, what we need is basically, let's try to display the parent first. So what I'm going to do is basically I will create a function of parent, and this will definitely belongs to, let me also define this relationship. So this basically belongs to category, and the foreign is parent underscore ID. Let's quickly display that. And in order to do so, we need to specify the category, parent, question mark arrow, title. Now why I used this question mark is because if we do not use that, so for those categories or parents relationships where the relationship is empty, and still the empty relationship will try to access this title. Okay, so since this will be null, so in that case our application will break. So for that reason we want to display this null operator, which basically handles the null values. Okay, so if we now refresh, you can see we have these options here, and for those which are empty is all stays the empty. Okay, so we can also utilize, if this is empty, we can also display the dot sign here as well. So here you can see we have now dot. And finally, for the image, what we need is basically we need to create a function of, let's say, image. And what I prefer is basically I will define the image. Definitely we will get that image from here. So this will basically our default image. So let's use that here, and I will check return. So this will be like not empty trim dollar this image. So if this is not empty, we are going to return dollar this image, else we will return this image. And we also need to change the return type, which would be string. All right, so let's utilize this as a place of image. So image source dollar category image, like so. And let's also self close it. And we also need to give the alt tag, so category and title. Now let's try to reload. For those images where we have like the images, so definitely they are now quite big. So what we need is basically we need to define the class of WPX50. And if I reload this page, so now we can see our images here. And what I will do is basically I will set the height of 50 pixels and also the width of also 50 pixels, and I will make it rounded circle. Now if I reload this page, so now you can see that we have an image in circle. The other thing I also want to do here, which is seems like it's not working, is that so for the image we have image, but the so if not empty trim, this will return the image, otherwise this should return this image, and seems like this image is not accessible. Let me try to inspect what we have here. Okay, so in that case our image is empty. Okay, so the issue is that we basically used this image, so instead we need to point to the function here. So now if I try to reload the page, now you can see everything is working perfectly. The only reason this is not working is because we uploaded this image first and this went straight into our storages, so that's why that was not loading. So we just make it the default image here. Okay, so now the next thing is basically we need to work on delete, edit and inactive. So for the delete, we have a delete functionality here. All I want to do is basically, let's grab this functionality, and inside the destroy method, let's create a method of delete, pass the category, and let's say category has been deleted successfully. All right. So let's go to our category service, and here public function delete, and this will accept the category, and dollar category delete. So this will return definitely a void function. So we are not returning anything. And this should also be redirect response. Okay. And let's try to delete any category. So you will notice that we have a title of development here. And as soon as I will delete this category, these parents will no longer be available. So if I click on delete and click on yes, so we can see that it seems like all these are deleted. Okay, the reason is that because we have not utilized the soft deletes, and for those reasons all our categories are deleted, and that is not a good thing. Now all these categories, other categories are deleted. It's because we had a relationship where we defined that the deletion method should cascade, and that is why all those categories deleted and didn't work. Now if I try to delete this one, you will see that this category has been deleted, but if I now refresh the page, you can see this category stays here. All right, so actually we basically made a mistake, so which we now fixed is anyways, it's not a big deal. The other thing that I want to do is basically I want to put errors here, and let's set this to null back again, reload the page, delete, and now if I again check, you can see this category remains here still. All right, so we have all covered like how we can edit it, sorry, delete it. Now let's also try to edit it. So for the edit part, we have already this update method. Let's also copy the exact same functionality and paste it here. Sorry, the exact same functionality means the exact same form we created, it should also be here in update. Now if I try to click on edit, you will see the exact same form, and here we are encountering an error, so we need to use these options as well, and categories as well. Now if I reload the page, okay, so it should be categories like so. Now if I reload the page, you can see we have category, and then we have exactly the same form. All right, so first of all what we need is basically inside our build options, you will see we have indentation and selected ID. So for the indentation we will pass 0, and for the selected ID we will use category and parent underscore ID. Okay, and now if I try to reload the page, you will see since we do not have any parent ID, this will remain as it is. The next thing is basically we need to update this to, instead of store, let's use this update and pass the category, and that would be the category ID. All right, and we also need to update the method to put. Additionally, we also need to specify the category title, description, and finally category image, like so. Now if I try to reload the page, you can see we have title, we have description, and the description should be like so. Now if I try to reload again, you will see the image is also displaying. Now let's try to update this one, and exactly the similar scenario, let's copy this functionality from here and paste it here. Let's also update the return type to redirect response and change this to update. Category updated, and let's create this function. So exactly we need to replicate this one, And for here, we need to make a little changes. The first thing is basically we also need to pass the category. And here we need to update these values. So all we need is basically use the category. And let's also make sure that it is passed as a second parameter. And let me update all these values so that we can target the current category variables. Right. So for the URL title, we do not need to generate the URL title again and again. And for the image, we need to make sure that if there is a file, only then we update our image. Otherwise, we do not want to make amendment. So all we need is basically we need to check if we have an image, only then update that. All right. And additionally, if we try to update this one, this will not let us do that. Now the reason is that, that will work, that will work. So I thought that we have implemented the uniqueness of this one here, but no. So that should work. If I now put any dummy information on to the description section and try to submit it. Okay, so category updated successfully. And we can also see that the category has been updated. And for the business, let's see what do we have here. Inside the business, we have entrepreneurship. Let's open that. Let's create a new category to see if these things work. Entrepreneurship, submit. Now let's go to categories. And this one is the entrepreneurship. Let's click on edit. And now you can see we have the parent selected here as well. All right. So let's also try to update the image as well. So for that, let's again use the same image. And let's see if everything works. Yep. So you can see we have now image, we have the parent, we have the title and description as well. All right. So I think this video is getting longer, but we have covered two topics here, three basically. Like we displayed all categories, we added the delete button, edit button. In the next section, we are going to implement the inactive functionality. All right, that's about it, and I will see you in the next one.